Holy Innocents. Um, and I'll talk about them a little bit in a few moments, but first, do want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas still. Hopefully, you had a wonderful Christmas day and that weekend following Christmas. And as we continue every big feast day in the church, had an octave. Christmas and Easter are still the ones that we still celebrate. So the week following those feast days are also um, times for celebration. And so we continue to celebrate the birth of Christ with Christmas joy. And this year, because of the way the calendar fell, some of those feast days that directly follow Christmas, we really didn't get a chance to celebrate very much. So on the 26th, there's the Feast of St. Stephen, the first martyr. On the 27th, there is the Feast of St. John, the Evangelist. And then on the 28th, the Feast of the Holy Innocents. Sometimes it's been explained that um, these are first we have Saint Stephen, the first martyr. So it's kind of like after the birth of Christ, we honor the first who was willing to give his life for Christ. And then we have in St. John the Evangelist, someone who was willing to give his life for Christ but never had to. We don't celebrate St. John as a martyr. Of all the apostles, he's the only one who doesn't die a martyr's death. And then the holy innocents are the ones who gave their life for Christ, even though it really wasn't by choice that way. There wasn't a willingness because these are young children. So it's interesting that the church gives us kind of that connection to the martyrs or this willingness to witness to the gospel, even to the giving of our lives directly after the birth of Christ. But it's also a reminder, too, that right from the very beginning, forces of both supernatural and natural are fighting against the mission of the Messiah. And so today's feast kind of really exemplifies that. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about the Holy Innocents, maybe give a little history of that feast day. But just an update on our schedule for this week. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday will follow really the normal schedule that we would have. Tomorrow there are confessions from 5:30 to 6:15, followed by Mass at 6:30, and then Rosary following Mass. That's on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we'll have confessions from 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m., and then Mass at 8 a.m., followed by exposition and adoration of the Blessed Sacrament throughout the day. And we'll close that with benediction shortly before 7 p.m. I'll live stream that last half hour. So we'll live stream starting at 6:30 and close with benediction right about 7 p.m. On Wednesday. On Thursday, and the office is closed on the 31st, on New Year's Eve. The office is closed and there is no 8 a.m. Mass. But for the holy day of Mary, the Mother of God, which is on January 1st, obviously everyone's still dispensed from the obligation to attend Mass, but we'll do our normal schedule. It kind of follows our weekend schedule. So on Thursday evening at 4:30, there'll be Mass here at St. John the Baptist. On Friday, January 1st, there'll be an 8:45 a.m. Mass at St. Michael's, and followed by a 10:30 Mass here at St. John's. So that's kind of the weekend or the kind of the week coming up with a few different schedules. And the office is also going to be closed on Friday, January 1st. It'll give and I'll keep updating that. And I plan on doing an update each day, except on Friday. I'll do one on Thursday morning, hopefully, and then nothing on Friday, kind of following the same pattern for Christmas. But as I said, the Holy Innocents is the feast that we have today, and it celebrates really kind of these first martyrs of the faith, these young male children around the Bethlehem vicinity that King Herod had massacred. in search, trying to destroy the Christ child. If you remember the story, Matthew's gospel has this story where the Magi come from the east. They're looking for the newborn king of the Jews. Herod's not from like the house of David or anything like that. He's just kind of a patsy for the Romans. So he's installed as the king of the Jews, so to speak. But he's from a group that was kind of forcibly made to convert to Judaism. And so anytime there's a claimant to the throne, yeah, he gets a little nervous. And he's also kind of a very vicious ruler too. So he tries to trick the Magi by saying, "You go find this child, then come back and tell me where he is, because I want to go worship him also." Well, the Magi are informed in a dream not to go back to Herod, and they leave by another route to go back to their own country. Herod realizes that they're not coming back to give him that information he wants, so he gets all the scribes and Pharisees together and says, "Okay, where is this? Bethlehem." So then he orders that around Bethlehem, all male children around under of 2 and under are to be killed. And there's some very large numbers of children that that sometimes are cited for this. Bethlehem wasn't a real huge village, so the number of young boys under the age of 2 may not have been thousands and thousands, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still that he orders, and trying to destroy the Christ child, he orders the killing of these young boys. Joseph has been warned in a dream to take Mary and the baby Jesus and to go to Egypt and to wait until Herod dies, and then they can come back. So one of the parallels that this draws in Matthew's gospel is between kind of Moses and and Jesus. Matthew is seen as a gospel that was directed a lot of times to the Jewish people, so some of these connections between Old Testament figures are maybe more important to Matthew in his gospel than it would have been maybe for Luke in his. So, as they order the killing of the Hebrew children in Egypt, Moses, is saved from that. We have this parallel where Jesus goes to Egypt and is saved from the massacre of the innocents. And this feast does have, there's evidence of it being celebrated, I think, as early as the 5th century. Let me check my reference real quick. It says in the Western Church, it's been commemorated on the 28th of December since the 6th century, so since the 500s. In the East, they simply call it the Holy Children, and that's been kept since the 5th century. And so some of the early fathers of the church, do mention the Holy Innocents. St. Irenaeus, St. Cyprian, St. Gregory Nazianzen, St. John Chrysostom. These are all early church fathers where a mention is made of the Holy Innocents. So this is a feast day that has been commemorated in the church for quite a while, and also reminds us of the fact that, yes, witnessing to Christ is not something that is readily accepted many times by the forces of this world or the devil and his angels. So we can ask the Holy Innocents to pray for us and help us even though they could never proclaim Christ by their words, they did by their actions and by the giving of their lives. And so even us too, that whether we use words or actions, that we can through them always proclaim salvation in Jesus Christ, that we celebrate that coming of the Messiah in the Christ child gives us that hope of salvation. And so I'll close with part of a poem that comes from the Spanish poet Prudencius, and he wrote a couple stanzas that honor the Holy Innocents in his hymn for Epiphany. And it begins with, "All hail, sweet flowers of martyrdom, cut down in life's bright dawning hour, and shattered by the foe of Christ, as rosebuds in a whirling storm. Amidst the streams of blood that flowed from tender babes of equal age, alone the virgin son escaped, the sword that pierced the mother's hearts." And so on this 28th of December, we'll ask the Holy Innocents to pray for us, and we'll continue to pray for each other and to look out for one another. And I pray that God will bless you abundantly this day. And Merry